August 14th, 1995, interview with Jack Fleisher by Scott Freed in South Fallsburg, New York, United States of America, being conducted in English. I'm Scott Freed, and I'm here with Jack Fleisher on August 14th, 1995, in South Fallsburg, New York, United States, and we'll be conducting this interview in English today. Morning, Mr. Fleisher, or good afternoon, actually. Can you begin by just stating your name and your date of birth for us?
My name is Jack Fleisher.
And the date of birth?
10/7/10/1918.
And what city were you born in?
I was born in Ozarov.
Can you spell Ozara for us?
O-Z-O-R-O-R-V.
In Poland?
Poland.
I'd like to, at first, talk to you a little about your life before the war. Can you describe the town of Ozara for us?
Ozarov was a small town, not too many people. It was about 1,200 Jewish families, and we lived very poorly, not too much to be progress. There's a lot of tailors, a lot of shoemakers, a lot of what we call we make zatlers, we make for horses.
You said there were 1,200 Jewish families?
Yes.
About, out of how many people in total would you say in the town?
Exactly, I will not know the amount.
Well, did Jews make up a large percentage of the people?
Yes.
More than half?
Yeah. We were more united, we were more family together, we come together, we call all the kind celebration, all the kind holidays. We met, we come, we enjoy it. Life was primitive, was beautiful, interesting. In the way we conduct ourselves was a lot of youngsters. We belonged to different organizations.
Did you belong to one?
I was in more religion. I have more religion friends, so I belonged to B'nai Akiba.
Which was?
This was more religion, more observing, more educated in Jewish way.
But it was a Zionist group, correct?
Zionist organization.
So what were you taught?
We taught daily living. We have different groups, different classes. First class, second class, third class. Everybody belongs to their section, to their group. Was one a madrich, one the leader for my group. We participate in different way to go out to have picnics, to have different drives.
So would you say it was more educational than social?
More educational, yeah. Was more knowledge for a teenager to know what's going on in the world. We have books, we have gazettes, different kind, brochures. And this was our daily living.
Did you feel like you were being prepared to go to Israel?
We were more thinking about the future. We should have our own country, because we always was praying in Hebrew, Lashana Haba Be'Yerushalayim. That was in our mind. That's the way we were brought up.
Now, you had a lot of education in this group. What about regular school, the public schools?
Public school, I went from what I call from the first grade to the seventh. I finished 7 classes, and this was the highest education in our town.
Now, in that school, was it strictly for Jews, or did Poles go
It
there
was
too?
Gentile Jews, and was from every grade of every what I call class was a different what I call education: history, arithmetic, geography, all the kind subjects. And we have also a class of education class. Was a special teacher once a week. We have 1 hour of education, like for the Bible. They tell us in different source of life, different things of our to bring us the daily of living.
Now, your school had Jews and Gentiles.
Right.
And you were in classes together. Was there any problems?
Was a lot of problems because the anti-Semite in Poland, the kids was brought up from a child on to hate the Jews.
Did you experience this personally?
Plenty.
Can you
Plenty.
remember any occasions?
I had a fall any time when we go home, when the school was finished, like we start 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we went home. So they did attack us. They were hiding in the side for the street, and they used to beat us up.
And this would become like a daily occurrence
And
almost?
this was going daily on, daily out. I was 7, 8 years old. I come home and was crying. All of my friends run away because we went 3, 4, 5 kids together going home. So they used to beat us up, and I come home and I was crying. So I tell my father used to explain it to me. He said, Jack, in a fall like this, you don't stay and wait till you're going to be beaten for somebody else. You have to give back. And don't think you have to look for a clean fight. Bite, kick, anything what you can do to protect yourself.
So from an early age, you learned to protect and
I
fight
learned
back?
from an early age. As a matter of fact, I have one incident. We went home from school, and a couple Gentile boys was beating us up. So I remained, and I kicked one in the right place. The second day, they took us to the principal, because when I kicked him, and when he started to scream, yell, I was more frightened than he was. In this age, I didn't know. I was thinking maybe I did something, he's gonna die.
But did you feel good about fighting back?
I felt from the beginning I was frightened. Then the next day they took us up to the principal. The principal was a liberal. The principal took us, both of us, and he tried to make peace between us. First of all, he was questioning me and him, and I told the principal the story, what was going on. Then he asked him if it's true. He couldn't say no. So by the end, he said, shake hand. Now, you out. If it's going to happen again, we're going to call the parents. In Europe, if you call the parents, was no picnic. But parents wants to know what's going on. You have to behave. And the Gentile kids didn't care. So, and when this was over, there was a slogging going on downstairs before we went to the classes that I kick. From this day on, that didn't bother me no more.
So
This was a fact I learned the hard way.
So you learned that if you fought back, people would have left you alone. They did.
In this age, we didn't know so much. Fact is, when I got older, we formed groups to play soccer, we formed groups to make exercise, and even from the class, like exercise in Europe, There was difference like here. You go and what you call in America around. They have different bars, different things for exercise. And we were doing this boys and girls together and playing volleyball. We didn't have no football. We had soccer. Soccer was the main thing.
Did you
So
play
I
with
played-
the Gentiles though ever?
Most we play in the back of the synagogue was a piece of land. And then we belonged to organization was Jewish, like the Star, Nordia. It was what I call Maccabi in our town.
So you yourself was very involved in many groups.
I was belonged what I call to the teenagers. So we used to play the back of the synagogue was a piece of land, a piece of field. We make like two, what I call 11 boys on this side, 11 boys on this side. We played like a team.
Let me ask you, Jack. You've mentioned your father a couple of times. What was his name, first of all?
Gil Chaim.
And now you talk about him. Were you and him very close?
Yes, we were. First of all, I was the only son in the house. In Europe, our father was the leader of the house. Daddy said, today is Monday. I was not, I couldn't say it's not Monday.
Did you find yourself spending a lot of time with him?
Yeah, we, first of all, Friday night, mother prepared the meal for Sabbath. We come home from shul, we sit down to the table, we make what we call a motzi, a bit of chali, and then a bit of priagaf and a bit of wine. Everybody has to have a glass of wine. And then we finish the meal, we sing Zmiris, and my father was, he liked so much to sing, so much this goodness, this feeling. We feel like we home.
Did you sing with him?
Yeah, plenty times.
You remember the songs?
Naturally, listen, if I been working in the choir, with the Kente in about Tfiller, was individual, one of our Jews were allowed to daven for the congregation. They call about Tfiller. And I used to participate like 3 boys on this side and 3 boys, even growing people. Like we form a choir and we sing. He used to say the words and we used to what we call hold the tune to come out nice and smoothly. And when we finished, this was our pleasure, our goodness.
What did your father do for a living? What did your father do for a living?
He was a tailor. He was a good men's tailor. He was making suits to order, suits to work, pants, jackets, like what we call for the winter in Europe was cold. We make what we call for sheepskin or for all the kind what we call overcoats. It was a nice what we call was a hard day of living.
What about Mom? Did she?
Mom was a seamstress.
What was her name?
Rivka Vax. She was middle name was Waxman. Was Mama Rivka, and they call her in the city the Shine Rivkala.
Why?
She was a beauty. And
Can you
good.
describe her? What she
Yes.
looked like?
She was a mother and it's no words to bring out the love in a mother. And the children were dedicated to Ma, was life was interesting, not in richness. We struggled in our family, we didn't have no richness at all. We own a living. We worked hard, day and night. As a matter of fact, from a kid, my age, I didn't like the needle trade. Was in my mind Soon Saturday night, when they make the vedula and light the candles, finish the Sabbath, we have to go right away to sit down by the machine, and I used to make finishing, put on buttons, put on buttonholes, and make what are called the linings, and learn the trade. It was a slavery. Because in Europe, when you make a suit, you build a house. It was last for years.
But it was we were proud when you were finished, I would imagine.
Yeah, when it's finished, when a man put on a suit, he looks like a model. And this was hard.
No, go ahead.
We were happy, a happy family.
You mentioned the family. Who else was there besides your mother, father, and you?
I have an older sister, Laya. She was named after my grandfather's mother. I was the second. They called me Moshiaki because we were two Moshiakis. There was my mother's sister had a son named of Moshiaki, and my mother had a son Moshiaki. If they want to know which one is, they have to say Moshiaki Rivkales or Moshiaki Malkales. That they know which is which. If we all name after Grandpa Nuchem Leizes, his father.
Who were the other sisters?
I have a sister, Hanala, a beauty, a doll.
Looked like mother?
She was a marvelous, a good nature, and a good student. And the third sister was Basha Reisel. She was named after my mother's mother. She was just start to go in the time in the wall in kindergarten.
Jack, you said that you, when you were in the Zionist group, you had a real knowledge of the rest of the world, that you read papers.
Yeah, we had different brochures. The newspapers was come out in Polish or was in Jewish. We knew what was going on in other countries.
So did you follow the rise of Nazism in Germany?
We knew what's going on. We felt something is wrong someplace. I mean, in fact, we have a lot of speakers from different organizations. I remember I was a teenager, Jabotinsky come to Lodz, and he was talking on the beam, I don't know, about so many thousands of people, Jewish people, and he prescribed after 1933 what happened in Germany with the Crystal Night, with everything. He said, he used to say in Yiddish, he used to say, Yidden, it comes a fire. If you have chance to go to change, to make something, a better future for yourself, try to go to Israel. As a matter of fact, in Europe, they organized groups of kibbutzim. They mean hachshara. The youngsters would participate to go to work, to learn to work for timber, gardening, all the kind things to be fruitful. When they come to Israel, they should know to do things by themselves.
But you didn't join any of these groups?
I was too young and I was occupied with my parents.
Were you attracted to Jabotinsky?
Yeah.
Did you think of joining Beitar and being one of his?
If not the wall, I would like to be something fruitful for the youth, for the Jewish organizations.
So, since you knew it was going on, did you sense that coming danger, or did you just assume that things were fine?
We knew because the anti-Semitism in Poland was gone on daily. They were provoked from Germany. The spies used to dictate the Polish people. There were signs, don't buy by the Jews, don't participate to the Jews, don't help out the Jews. This was their slogan, and they had they have groups, organizations, what they against Jews.
Was there ever a moment, Jack, when you felt like you were a Polish citizen, or did you always feel separate?
I hadn't heard I was Jewish. You live in a country where they hate you. You can say I like them because they participate more in the World War II than any nationality in Europe.
Did your parents ever think of leaving Poland? Did you ever consider moving?
My father, when the war come out, we earn a living. The children were small. The travel was not in his power. And the family was all together, uncles, aunts, cousins. Our family was closer to 40 people, maybe more than that. We had in different cities were relatives belonged to the Fleischers and to the Waxmans.
And he didn't want to leave his family behind.
I couldn't go away. The fact is, when the Germans come in, they isolated us. They kept us away, and they tried to first of all, they give out order not to go out after 7 o'clock.
Well, let's go back for a second. The day that they came into your particular town,
Yeah.
what was it like the first time you saw a German soldier walk into your town?
See, we youngsters, we didn't know about it. The people, the elderly people from World War I, there was a different Germany, was a different nation, different people. The coming after what comes, when Hitler comes, so this was a difference in the elderly people didn't believe the German can do so much harm to us. When they come in the city, I manufactured in our town, they march in the street going through what are called the main street, where we used to live. They march soldiers and soldiers. The one young lady looked out of the window. For a joke, a German soldier killed her instantly with a rifle.
This was the first
And
person?
this was the first hour when they marched to our town.
Was that the first time you had seen someone killed?
We didn't, we knew right away what happened.
And what was going through your mind when that happened?
I was frightened. Everybody was, first of all, when the people has to not allowed to go out after certain hours, there was already, everybody was scared. What comes next? What comes next? On the top of this, they took all the Jews on the place where the synagogue was a big, what I call a big, the front of the synagogue, and they took us all the groups, and they tried to keep us near the synagogue.
Was this right after the weekend?
To scare us. They tried to say if they're going to find some ammunition bars, they're going to shoot us. They're going to do, anything what's going to happen to the Germans, they're going to do the same thing to us.
Was this the first days that they had occupied your city?
There was a few days when they were already in the city.
And when they took you to this synagogue, how long did they keep you there?
They kept us a nice few hours. Then they tried to some groups will try to go to the commandantur and work out they should release us. In the meantime, everybody was scared. We didn't know what's going to happen to us.
And what about the non-Jews, the Gentiles in the town?
The Gentiles, they did to them too. They isolated them too because the propaganda used to go around that the Polish or the Jews, they're fighting against the Germans. So this way to scare us, they isolate us in what are called, they have the soldiers around to keep us around, isolated. In this way to scare the people, and everybody was afraid.
So when they finally let you out of the synagogue,
Yeah.
where did you go?
They have to go back to their apartments, to their house.
So after they first took over the town, what happened to your family's livelihood, your father's work?
The,
Did he continue working as a tailor in those first?
yes, we did.
And did life change at all beyond the occupation?
Yeah, we have to work. That time, they took off. They tried to take away from us if we have some material, some raw stuff or something. What if we make from our own material? They come around, they confiscate it for the stores. They took away everything, and then the people used to come to us. We should make some clothes for them. At that time, we didn't take no money. We tried to take some produce, some vegetables or some potatoes, all the kind of stuff to feed us, the family.
So you would say already after about a month, you were at the point where money wasn't worth anything anymore?
Yes.
And how long did this go on where things were just basically like that?
This was when I was 1939, 40, and this we still were working in the house, and the Gentiles used to come from the small towns, from the small villages, used to come around to, we should make him a pair of pants or make him something, clothes. Though we didn't took no money, we took some product.
Did the anti-Semitism rise after the Germans took over the town?
Yes.
How
yes.
so?
There was, first of all, the Germans didn't know who was Jewish. The Polak used to go out and he used to show Jude, Jude, Jude. Before we had what we call the Jewish star. They give right away an order in the ghetto, we have to wear a Jewish star. You should know who's Jewish, who's not.
But before you were in the ghetto, you didn't have to wear one.
And before, the Gentile used to go out and they used to point with the finger who's Jewish, who's not. They used to take us to work. They used to come out with a truck and they went out in the street and they captured people and they took him on the truck and they took him where the army used to stay, or the horses, or they need some cleaning, or they need something for to do some work for the soldiers.
Almost like slave labor?
That's what we call the way how to keep us.
At this point, you were working with your father, though?
I used to work here with my father.
You mentioned that the Poles would point out the Jews for the Germans.
Yeah.
Were there beatings on the street, attacks?
Yes, they did. When they captured you to go to work, they accumulate 5, 10, 15, 20 people. They put you on the truck. In those laws, I mean, you have to do it fast. And if you didn't what I call go so fast, they beat you up with sticks, with a rifle, with anything what they got in the hand.
New York. Now, Mr. Fleisher, you were saying that on occasion the German soldier would take people to be working for kind of like helping out or slave labor for the soldiers?
No, they used to take us to different work. Then lately, their firm, they want to make the highways. So we work what we call in stones, in what we call in the ground. We used to go every morning to work because they used to need 40, 50 people from the city, and we used to go like by trucks 4, 5, 6 miles out for the city. There is, they call it, used to make what we call the, like you dig coal, this was rocks, what you call?
You know, like granite or?
Yeah. So we went there by group, and they bring out the rocks from the ground and bring it out the front. And this was trucks. We load up on trucks, and they used to take out to make highways.
How often were you taken? I mean, you were still working with your father.
5 days a week.
So you no longer were working with your father.
I couldn't, because the city has to provide like 30, 40, 50 people a day, or maybe more.
And you always were working?
I belonged to a group where we went, what we call, to the Steinbruch, to make what we call the rocks from the ground to come out. And we loaded on the trucks, and the trucks took away some place, and people were sitting in the, what we call, they make from the big rocks small, and they make it short, and to build highways from one city to the other city.
Were you fed?
I went and I worked from 1941, I think from 40 to 41, still before they took me to Skaržisko Kamienna.
When did they make your town into a ghetto, though?
The ghetto started right away by 1940.
So they immediately ghettoized the community.
They accumulate from all the small towns, from villages. The Jews used to have farms. The Jews used to have houses. They used to live in other small villages where there used to be 10 families, 15 families, Jewish families, between the Gentile. And you used to have cows, so you used to have like farms here. And they tell them to leave the village to come to the city, to live in the city.
To your city.
That's the way they accumulate to make a ghetto.
So everybody came to Ozarov.
They have to come from different villages.
And how much of Ozarov was made to the ghetto? Like what part of the town?
Every Jewish family has to take in another couple or another family. And we had 2 rooms or 1 room. We have to be together with another family. We live like one on top of the other. This was called ghetto.
But you weren't a walled-in ghetto.
No, was no wall. That time was no wall. When I left, I didn't know what was going on.
So you basically were working, building these roads for about a year.
More than a year, yeah.
When you were out working each day,
Yeah.
did they feed you?
No, I took a sandwich with me for lunch. And I come home, I had supper. And they used to say, a minimum wage, they used to give us like 2 zlotys an hour. The end of the week, like after 5 days, we got to get like 36 zlotys.
So they did pay you?
That was paid. Minimum wages was nothing too much for the money to buy.
How was the treatment by the soldiers when you were working?
We didn't have no soldiers, we had civil, what I call Ukraine, or it was a German-speaking people, or they come from different towns. They make him like a Vorarbeiter. It was somebody and a half of a group, and they was watching with what we'll call with sticks, with rubber pipes, and we didn't do so fast. They used to beat us. They used to call us names. They used to kick us.
So you yourself were kicked and beaten?
Not once, many times.
And this time you couldn't fight back like you did when you were a child?
This time we were what we called a minority group. Then we knew we were Jewish, and we knew we have to do the work, and it's got to be done. We didn't have no choice.
What were the conversations like in your house at this time with your father and mother?
It was hard. We didn't know, every day we didn't know what's next, what's going to come next. In the daily of living was in fear, depressed. aggravated, couldn't do nothing about it, couldn't help ourselves. And the worst enemy, we have the Gentile people, what was against us, and they were working with the Germans, hand by hand.
Did you have, I guess, a feeling that sooner or later it would get worse? Were you expecting